Hi, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of the Stratosphere Studio. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and it's actually going to be kind of cool because I always felt guilty talking about the animation and pop culture show on the Stratosphere Lounge, and now I don't have to. We've got two different live streams. We got two different channels. I'll have a link to the Stratosphere Studio page, which has the original animation on it. I'll put that below. Hi, everybody. We tried our very best to stream this thing live to YouTube today, and it took an hour and a half of my time and virtually all of, well, last time I checked just before we went on the air, my blood pressure was 320 over 180, but other than that, I'm doing fine. And we will see if we can do something to dress the background, make it look a little different than the Stratosphere Lounge. But in any event, here we are. So I thought what we do is talk about what we're trying to do here with the channel, this new channel, and what we got planned. And then we'll take some questions from the comment section. I suspect that's what we'll be doing on this show. Somebody said no Petunia. No, there's Petunia Clark is for the Stratosphere Lounge. I think I'll keep the Star Trek theme as the opening for this. We had a run of, before the recording started, of opening themes from various TV shows that had a big influence on me, science fiction shows. And I don't think we can run that without getting ourselves in big trouble, but we can run it live, and that's what we did. So anyway, it's good to see people here, 60 people here. It's a start, I suppose. So I moved the corn closer. I have plans. I have plans for the background that I was hoping to get to today, but nope. I was sitting here playing with the same bloody buttons for an hour and a half. It'll get there, don't you worry. I had something I was going to talk about, but I figured we'll just keep it about the colonies this time, kind of keep it simple. And then next week we'll start with the pop culture stuff. But I will say, just as a teaser, I did see somebody who I like and admire slandered as badly as I've ever seen anybody slandered. So I think next week we'll start with that because it was just unbelievably transparent and vile and base. In the news today, let me see where I put that thing. It's here somewhere, by gosh. Today, of course, was the schedule launch. It's the 29th of August, and today was the scheduled launch of the fabulous Artemis mission program, which I'm sure all of you had the highest expectations for. To be honest with you, it didn't get as far even as I had, what do I say? No, not even as far as I had thought it wouldn't get. That's probably not grammatically correct. I had something that I did a screenshot of here. Where'd it go? It was very appropriate for this thing, and I can't seem to find that either. Well, that's okay. They said they got it all teed up, and they've only had 20 years and several tens of billions of dollars, I guess, when all the cost overruns are included, and they rolled it out to the pad for the second or third or fourth or eighth time, and this was going to be the one, by golly. And I saw all of the NASA publicity about how we're going back to the moon and we're going to fly this. And that's actually a pretty impressive mission. Here it is. Here's what I was looking for, I think. Yep. Saw this on comment section on Instapundit today. Whoops. I'll just enlarge that one. Why don't I? Yeah, this is kind of my feeling. It's my feeling before the launch, actually. But should have called these guys. Because these guys would have gotten it done. This whole thing is connected. Yeah, I heard they're going to launch Nicole's ashes into space. I hope they put it on SpaceX, because otherwise she's never going to get there. I really think that this is connected to the failure of the Artemis thing. It's connected to, in a way, it's connected to all the things that we want to talk about with the pop culture. It's connected to what I'm trying to do with the animation. It's all basically together. It's not just hey, this would be a fun TV show. There's a political component to all of this. And what I mean by that is these guys were in the business of launching rockets, and they got the best guys that they can get. And I see what appears to be a black man up in the front right row there. Maybe not. Doesn't matter, because these are the best guys they could get. But then when you hear about the Artemis program, well, what's Artemis going to do? Well, we're going to go back to the moon. Oh, really? That's kind of cool. About time. And it'll be the first time we'll have a woman on the moon, and the first time we'll have a person of color on the moon. And I thought to myself, well, how about if we just had Americans on the moon? How about if you took the best crew you could? And when I hear that, I say to myself, this isn't a space program anymore. This is now it's a gold star. It's an achievement award. It's a box to check. Is your country still racist? Yes or no? Do you have astronauts on the moon? Are they all white? Yes. That doesn't look good. Maybe we should. We're working on it. It's just, what do you say? So this is not the NASA that I grew up with. I watched the first part of Apollo 11, what we saw last night. The first time in about a year and a half, 2 years. And I don't know. It's just amazing how far everything seems to be falling apart. And like I said earlier, it's all connected. Roy Hamill in the comment section live says, yeah, it's like it's all Hollywood. It is. It's all Hollywood. It's got nothing to do with space flight anymore. It's got nothing to do with any of that stuff. Now, Elon Musk, on the other hand, is. And I think I said this on this week's Virtue Signal with Zoe. I'm very enthusiastic supporter of Elon Musk in terms of his space stuff. He's shown some signs of being, more conservative than others and the whole Twitter thing. But the best way I can put it is to say that Elon Musk, of all the high-tech billionaires out there in the New World Order ruling elite, he is the one I distrust the least. That's probably the best way for me to put what I think about Elon Musk. But he's going to Mars because he wants to. I have to tell you, I went before the launch, and I wasn't, give you an idea of how important it was, to me anyway. Did I get up for it? No. I didn't even realize it was today until this afternoon. And I realized, oh my gosh, it's supposed to launch this morning. Let's see what happens. And I go looking for it, and before I even hit the links, I said to myself, I think it's not going to have launched, but why be so cynical? I'm sure it got off just fine. Okay. Well, it turns out it didn't. It turns out these are the first reports I saw. They showed a video picture, and it's the side of this long orange tube, and there's a big line right down the length of it. And now this is not NASA speaking. This is the television commentator, so you take that with a ton of salt. But basically, he was saying the engineers are concerned with this line, and it appears to be a crack down the length of the tank, right? The length of the tank long. It's not like a little crack, or it is a little crack could kill you, but the whole length of the tank. And then they're saying, now that crack may in fact only be in the foam and not in the tank, and that's not nearly as serious. And I thought, I saw foam come off of stuff. I understand there's nothing downstream of this thing, but nevertheless, you're telling me that this is it? This is what the comment section will tell me how much this thing cost. Billions and billions, 10 billion, something like this. It's time for them to go away. Okay? It's time for them to stop doing this. Not get out of exploration, but the government needs to get out of manned spaceflight. NASA should take the money that they're wasting on this stuff, scrap this entire program, take that money, and then put that money into 23 billion. That's all. $4 billion for this launch. Why don't you just give that money to Elon Musk? He can launch 300 rockets for that, something like that. Yeah. What a pathetic, sad end to manned spaceflight. Because I don't know if it's sunk in on you guys yet, but I said this when the shuttle retired, when the last shuttle landed. I said that is the last time that Americans are going into space with NASA. I didn't know if they were going to go again at all. And then Elon Musk came along and impressed me with that. But nope, it's just plain embarrassing now. Embarrassing. So And I find out that our big moonshot, I didn't know this until recently because it's how much I care about Artemis, but I didn't realize until today that the service module, what would be the service module on a real spacecraft, like an Apollo craft, let's say, was made by the ESA. It's a European Space Agency thing. Now, to be fair, that's not what failed today, so I'm not giving them grief about that. But I saw a lot of ESA boosting going on. Yeah, ESA made it possible. Well, first of all, it didn't happen. Secondly, I will be impressed when the European Union puts an astronaut into space on its own. That will impress me. You would think that after 65 years, somewhere in there, that the British, the Germans, and the French could have put a guy up into space by now, but they didn't. So Bart's Treasure says he found NASA cowardly with this. They kept delaying their live feed and ended up not even going live at all. Yes. And somebody earlier said that NASA was making fun of all of the failures that Elon Musk and SpaceX had. Let's just get to this because this is really important, right? This isn't just a coincidence. If you are willing to put your mistakes out there in front of people and say, oh, looks like we screwed this up, here's what we learned, then you will succeed. If you are mocking people who do that and then don't show your repeated failures, you will fail. That's just the attitude of the entire organization. That's not a coincidence. That's why one succeeds and why the other one doesn't. But there they are with the Space Launch System. America's we're 2022 now, right? And we're going into space, and we got foam on external tanks, and we got solid rocket boosters, because what could possibly go wrong with foam or solid rocket boosters, right? Right? And it's only $4 billion per launch. Anyway, this is kind of why I'm doing this second channel, because everything I've talked about so far is political commentary. It's space political commentary, but it's still political commentary. Government's ridiculous and so on. I thought I'd take this first episode, to talk to you about what I wanted to do going forward with the colonies and why. And it gets clearer to me every day. I've wanted to do this my whole life, and I wanted to do it more and more and more as time has gone by. And it wasn't until about 2 weeks ago that I realized what it was that I was really trying to do. I know what I wanted to do, but I didn't know why I wanted to do it so much. And now I do. We did a backstage show, I think, or maybe it was a broadcast right angle last week or 2 weeks ago, where the question was, what does conservative victory look like? And Scott was setting up the question, and he said, so Bill, what does it look like for you? Or is it just America without those people? I said, yeah. So here's what the colonies is going to be. It's going to be America without those people. And every day that goes by, this idea becomes more and more attractive, not just to me, to everybody. It becomes more and more attractive to everybody to see what we would be doing if it weren't for those people. And this is when I realized that this actually is going to not only succeed, but be tremendous success, because it's funny, really, when you think about it. I got all this Star Trek stuff here, and all this science fiction stuff was big on my, it's such a huge part of my background. But what I'm really talking about is, I'm talking about, given the fact that it's going to be 2023 when this thing comes out, I have to use science fiction to show people what the past was like, not what the future is going to be like, what the past was like. Think about that for a minute. I have to go to a science fiction universe in order to show people what freedom used to be like in this country. And the way you do that is by showing, not telling, not lecturing, not any of this stuff, by showing people what actual freedom looks like. The ability to drive a car and go as fast as you want to. Where are you headed? I'm going out there. Okay, have a good time. You got to show things that would get you arrested today. That's how bad things are. You show a 10-year-old boy who's out there in the wilderness. It's 30 degrees below zero. He's got his suit on. He's out there fooling around with some equipment. All right. Well, when you see things like that, you will begin to realize what we've missed, or if it's your first time experiencing that, I'm hoping, and I fully expect, that it will slowly start to dawn on these people. I keep saying millennials are really talking about Gen Z now. All of these people whose lives have been ruined by this stuff, when they actually see what like actual grown adult men do, when they actually see what an honest-to-God healthy mother-father relationship is, and the balance, the interplay between mom and dad and the male and the female, when they see that allowing a 10-year-old boy to be on his own because he's behaving responsibly, what that does, when they see how all of this stuff, all of this flash that the daughter is exposed to, all of this poison, right, all this excitement, let's call it what it is, but all this excitement, the whole lasers of the nightclub, dancing robots, cyberpunk scene with all the gadgets and neon clothes, all that stuff, how much of a trap that is, how poisonous that is, how much of a dead end that is. And so all of this to simply say that the essence of what I want to do with this is to show people what freedom looks like, show them what it looks like on a family basis, show them what it looks like to be a free trader, not trader. What does it do? You're just going around and buy and sell things, move stuff around. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. How do you fight for these things? How do you set it up? What kind of risks are you willing to take? And to show that, as with our founding, this thing's just a mirror image of the founding, that the people who are responsible for starting this thing politically and economically, the people putting their own money in, what the consequences for them will be if this thing fails. So all of this stuff, but the main thing I'm trying to accomplish, that's the why. The how is kind of fun too. It's my intention to destroy every lazy science fiction trope out there, destroy all of them, and have fun destroying them too. Boy, it sure is dark. Can we get some lights in here, please? How many times do I have to see the dark inside of a science fiction facility, and it's, 200 years in the future, and we've got chains dangling and water dripping and steam coming out of here, and there's no lights. It's just, it's just dark metal. Can somebody turn on some lights in here, please? Thank you. What about that? And what about all of these horrible tropes? There are, I've mentioned before that since I don't have the ability to hire modelers just yet, we will, I have to go with existing assets and how that sometimes, in fact, often gives me interesting ideas. So if you were to go to one of these 3D model shops online, TurboSquid and CG Trader are the two big ones, and you look up science fiction corridor, you'll find hundreds of them, hundreds. And every single one of them are metal prefab things with railings and all this, and the reflective metal here, metal there. And all of it is looking really kind of, high-tech, sciencey, future-y kind of thing. Except that if you sit and look at one of these pictures for like 2 or 3 minutes, you'll realize that anybody who was attempted to live in this thing would go insane. They'd go insane. Nobody can live like that. Nobody. Even if you have, in prison cells, people put things on the wall. Some people put pictures of posters of Rita Hayworth on the wall. But nothing. Have you noticed that? In every science fiction movie you've ever seen, every science fiction game, all the Halo games, all of this other stuff, have you noticed that there's no personalization anywhere? Anywhere. That's why they have to constantly put 4 on, blue 4. Where are we? I kind of think we're on deck 4. Be my guess, frankly, since there's a 4 there and a 4 there and a 4 there and a 4 there, and here's another 4. There's an arrow pointing to 4 over here, and look, there's an arrow pointing up, says 5 and down to 3. I'm going to guess we're on 4. The reason that they do that is because they have gone with this insane idea that nobody personalizes anything. And this is such a fundamental thing that it just, if you just do that, if you just put art on the wall, carpets on the floors, a couple of wood panels up, you have already created a universe that looks nothing like anything that's out there. The future is 100% art-free. And I'll tell you who didn't make that mistake, and that mistake was not made by the original Star Trek show, because they didn't go with we're not going to have any art on the walls. Their attitude was, we're going to have the worst art possible on the walls, but they did it. Kirk's got a thing on his wall. It's a piece of carpet with a frame around it, right? It's garbage, but it's art. It's there for a reason. And all of this stuff, all of it, everywhere, is got to be personalized. People live there, and people can't stare at metal all the time. You can't sit there. See, this is the thing. This is why I think I'm uniquely qualified to do something like this, because I live out there in my head. I've spent 50 years of my life thinking about what it's like to be out there. And they don't. These other writers don't. They think I'm going to write some science fiction stuff. I'm going to put them in a science fiction setting. And when I put them in a science fiction setting, it's going to be horrible and awful because it's dystopia and that's what I want. Okay. But if you're trying to make the case that those people actually live there, G.K. Masterson said Picard's Ready Room had personalization. It did. It had extremely Tony toffee nose kind of fey ornamentation, but it was there. So having things looked at, the 4D chess thing, I was thinking about that myself, AOC. It's all of this stuff. Is it livable? What does this thing do? We mentioned that briefly on the Stratosphere Lounge last time. What was a science fiction room? Okay, so we got these giant tubes, and proud to say, my friend David Zucker did a perfect job of that in Airplane 2. What's this? Well, Captain, we found these glowing tubes, and they seem to just go on and off. Like, well, what do they do? We don't know, sir. They're just glowing tubes. Well, find out. Get on that. Find out what these things do. Right? When I look at the things that I'm using as references, a lot of times that's a good term for things. When you're trying to model something or you're trying to create something in the 3D world, a lot of times the guys who are really good at this, like texture artists and especially scene builders, will have photo books. And I mean 30, 40 pages of abandoned airplanes, right? This is what it looks like. This is how the grass starts to grow. This is how the stains work. They just constantly use all these references. And so I'm using references for the inside of the bridge of a starship. I'm not looking at things like, the bridge of the Enterprise or anything else. I'm looking at what does the control station of a nuclear sub look like? When I say the control station, I don't mean the control room. I'm talking about the dive planes area. That's a pretty good indication for what I'm thinking of, right? Most of you have seen it. In a nuclear sub, there's two guys sitting down side by side. They're both steering, which must be a pretty awesome job. I am assuming, virtually positive, that one of them is running the bow planes, the other one's running the stir planes. I don't know who's doing the rudder, but nevertheless. So, and they've got a chief petty officer 4 inches over their shoulders, checking it out. And when they're diving the ship, they push these things forward, and then they kind of come out, level off. But they're not standing on opposite sides of the room. They're not looking at transparent displays. They're sitting close together because in a submarine, there's not a whole lot of room. And I've been on a submarine. And that has the ring of truth to it. One of the things, by the way, about a submarine that is never reflected in any science fiction you see today, is this aspect that I'm talking about, is how cramped things are. When you have to create your entire environment artificially, like in a spaceship or in a submarine, you don't have the luxury of wasting any space. You don't build room that nothing uses. You use the minimum amount of volume that you can possibly get away with. That means less propulsion and all the rest of it for space and for submarines. So in submarines, when you're walking down the corridors in submarines, it is impossible to walk past somebody without brushing up against them. It's impossible. And I'm talking about modern American nuclear submarines. And so when I was on the Pasadena, one of the things that the guys like to talk about was there's the officers and the men are a lot closer on a sub than they are on an aircraft carrier because they're essentially literally like brushing past each other all the time. And there's kind of like it's a weird thing, actually. It's a social convention, right? And I wasn't on the sub but for 4 or 5 hours, so I wasn't there really long enough to completely get it. But one of the things about what I'm talking about with the ring of truth is when you have to touch somebody, when the hallways are so narrow that you have to brush somebody like that. I kept going, excuse me, and they didn't. And they said after a while, something there. After a while, it becomes automatic. You can't be saying excuse me 2-3 times an hour or a minute for 3 months. Okay, that is a cultural difference that nobody thinks about, but has to be there. And so when you get to this place, when you get to the work of finding out what is likely to be real, what you find is that everything that you're looking at is completely different than anything you've ever seen before, with a small handful of individual exceptions. So the inside of these spaceships is going to be tight and cramped. If it's a passenger ship, it's a relatively short-term passenger ship, then it's going to be like a third-class cabin. Because even on a ship, you can build a room as big as you want to on a ship. You don't have to carry its own oxygen, and it's not adding an awful lot to the propulsion cost, and you're making a big source of revenue there. So all of this stuff, and even in shows like take the last one that was of any significance, the Expanse, a lot of room on that tiny little ship on the Rocinante, had a lot of room. And when you see a ship that looks as cramped as the dive stations there, or as cramped as an aisle on a 737 or an airplane bathroom, something like that, then average Joe is gonna say, well, that's different. And frankly, this is where I take my scientist and engineer hat off, put my entertainment writer hat back on, and say that if it's different, it will be interesting, and that is the only thing that entertainment has to be. That's the only requirement for entertainment. It's nice if it can be clever. It's nice if it can be visually beautiful. It's nice if it can be, well written, all that stuff. But it has to be interesting, which is why things like Housewives of Planet X are so popular. They're awful people. Nothing happens, but it's interesting, at least to certain people for a while anyway. So, if Political Animal says I need to read the Expanse novels, they're brilliant sci-fi writing. I don't have time, Political Animal, to be honest with you. And I believe you certainly. I certainly do. But I'm just dealing with the visual arts here, so this is endemic to all of it. The other thing I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be listing a bunch of things that I'm going to be doing. When we have the founders on Earth, you're going to see that the cities in the future are utterly trashed. Los Angeles at nighttime, the center of it will be dark except for the campfires that are burning inside the various stories on the skyscrapers, because you cannot evict those people, because that would be bad politics to evict homeless people from skyscrapers. So all the windows are smashed out. And 80 floors up, you can hear screams of people being attacked, and off in the distance. And if you look closely, it's kind of sparkling because all of these former office buildings have got squatters in them, and they've got little fires that they're building, and they're cooking their rat meat on it, or whatever the case may be. As you get further and further away from the downtown, it starts to get a little more livable, and then when you get out towards the beaches and stuff, then you get the gated communities, and it's really kind of nice. So while society has basically fallen apart, the Earth is doing just great. It's not going to be gray skies. It's not going to be, all this stuff that I talked about in my most recent moving back to America. Go save something else, Earth's not dying. It's not even close to dying. It's healthier than it's been for 200-300 years, and I'm sick of it. So all of these tropes are going out the window. The guys who have the money, who are behind this, are going to be guys who worked for their money. And they're going to be guys who are worried about the other guys who have money, who are trying to tell everybody what to do. So we'll get to that in a minute. And then I'm just trying to think if there's any other things that come. No one's ever given any serious thought to space combat. This is an entire can of worms, and we can do an entire episode on this, and I suspect we probably will, and soon. But basically, I've become convinced that I've been convinced of the argument that stealth in space is essentially impossible. There is an extremely narrow application that is technologically feasible. When I say stealth, I don't mean cloaking devices. I mean, visible. Yes, thank you. Bart's Treasure says colonies will show that the true future dystopia is the government overreach. Yeah. And like I said, the homesteader storyline has always been the one that resonated most with me. When they decide to leave this thing, which is essentially old Europe because these cycles just keep repeating, when they decide to leave, it's going to be really scary and it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be a lot more dangerous on the frontier than it is back in these cities. It's just that on the frontier, there's no one telling you what to do all the time. And they're just going to be in that same state I was in when I went to Texas 7 years ago for Thanksgiving. What? They let you do that? Yeah, just get out of my way. We don't have time for this. Go out there and well, where do we park our rover for the winter? Where do you want to? I don't know. Can't do it in the city limits, which extend 200 yards out that way. Anywhere after that is fine. However, we'd appreciate it if you moved on a little bit. However, don't move on too far because, there's stuff out there. What, you mean like monsters? I mean like banditos. I mean like bad guys, bad men. Go far enough out there, which isn't very far, and there's no legal response, and then these guys will simply take everything you got and kill you. So you might want to stay a little closer or go out together in a wagon train. Defend each other, that's one thing. You guys sort it out, not my problem. So Jiba says the Old West towns had laws. They had extremely strict laws. You stole somebody's horse, you would hang for that. Because if you stole somebody's horse, you were essentially depriving them of their livelihood and very often of their life. If you are a cowboy and somebody steals your horse, you can't work anymore and you're not going to go down and get welfare. Horse thieves were hanged. And rightfully so. So all of this stuff. Now, here's an interesting little aside. This is something that I discovered since we did the last Stratosphere Lounge. I found a computer game out there that is not for everybody. In fact, it's hardly for anybody. But it's pretty impressive. It's called... I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Prosperous Universe. I think. I'll double check. And what it is it's a space economy simulator. And it's unbelievably complex. Yeah, Prosperous Universe. Okay, so in Prosperous Universe, you can play for free. And then if you want to get some extra features, you can pay them. I decided to pay them. Prosperous Universe is one of these economy simulators where everything is broken down and so cleverly, carefully thought out. If you want to make this, you have to have this. If you want to have this, you have to have helium-3. Well, we don't have helium-3. Well, if you want to make helium-3, you need to do this. And all of this stuff works together. It is a fantastically complex and extremely difficult thing to do. There are hundreds of screens, of information screens. My favorite part of it is if you decide you want to go to this commerce section to buy some stuff that you need, if you decided to put your base down in that solar system, you don't have much traveling to do. But if you're a couple out, you say fly to this destination, click a button. Okay, your ship, off it goes. 4 minutes to get to orbit, and then you can see it circling the planet. Then immediately it's on its way out to the jump gate route. That takes about 45 minutes, real time. 45 minutes, something like that, 50 minutes to get to the jump gate route. And then to go from one star to the next is probably 5, 6, 7 hours of real time. And so if you're going to send a ship someplace to buy some stuff, it'll get there tomorrow. That's relatively close to what I want to do. And the Stargate routes are pretty similar to what I want to do, which gives me an idea that is connected to everything else I kind of want to do in terms of the how. We talked about the why and so on. this has been open to a lot of misinterpretation, mostly because I haven't had it completely thought out yet. But let me give you the basics of what I'm hoping to do with this here. I would like to make this colonies thing as open source as possible. What I mean by that is I'd like to have as many people contributing to it as possible, but it cannot be completely open, because then people will start putting in the pink spaceships and the Hello Kitty logos, and this will be the USS, F your mother kind of thing, and no, it just can't. That just devolves into anarchy. So it's going to be extremely generous about sharing things, but it's not going to be generous about filtering things. I listen a lot to these pop culture channels. I'm going to start doing some of those commentary myself. Eventually build my audience up to a couple hundred, I suspect, if I'm really good at it. But guys like Doomcock have said that now he's been wrong about a few things, been right about a few things too. And when he's wrong, he openly says, "Hey, this is what I've heard, speculation. Take it for what you want." Bodie McBoatface, says Marisha Dark. That's right. For those of you not familiar with the term Bodie McBoatface, the Royal Navy decided they were going to have an online competition to name the next Royal Navy vessel, and they were going to put it out to the British people. They're going to vote on the name of the next British warship to come out, and it was going to be undoubtedly HMS Vengeance or HMS Inspiration or something. And the name that won was Bodie McBoatface. That was by far the big winner. And that's why we can't have nice things, right? That's grieving. That's like griefer play. I don't know if any of you have heard the term griefer, but let me give you my personal definition of this. When you play a computer game online with anybody else, you're not dealing with people who designed the game. Now you're dealing with players. And there's a subset of players called griefers, and they live on making everybody grieve. It's not that they're playing hard. It's not like, here's the difference between a griefer and a pirate. A pirate might stop your spaceship and, open fire on you, stop your spaceship, and then board you, and then take your stuff and maybe kill you. A griefer will fly his spaceship into yours as far back as he can, as fast as he possibly can, just to destroy what you're doing, just to ruin your day. That's the only reason that they're there, is to ruin your day. Ships appear in Star Citizen, they spawn out on the space station, so you console, you say, I want the spaceship, you get it, and you're walking out to the airlock, and as you're walking out to the airlock, somebody flies in from below, above, and blasts your thing into atoms, and you have to go do it again. And they do it just to make you miserable. And I think they should all be killed, but I've looked into that, and it turns out it's illegal. But griefers are real. There are people out there who exist to ruin other things. Mostly we call them progressives. But this is what they do. And what they're looking for is the anger. They're looking for the angry reaction. And for me, they usually get it. So if you don't have somebody, when I say somebody, I mean system, in place to limit what gets through the membrane, then you are in a fast track for oblivion. However, if that membrane is in place, then it would certainly be my inclination and desire and my plan to open this thing up to as many people as possible. Now, a lot of people have talked about this as being something like in terms of writing, and it's true in terms of writing, but it's much bigger than just the writing. It's things like world building and so on. But if you go to, you can go to ArtStation, but to be perfectly honest with you, you're probably better off going to a DeviantArt. If you haven't heard of DeviantArt, it's not as nasty as it sounds. If you go to either one of these two places, ArtStation or DeviantArt, what they are is they are online websites that display the artwork of various freelance artists, mostly for fun. A lot of these guys, most of them are working professionals, but some of them are just starters and stuff. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of 3D models, concept paintings, costumes, all of this stuff. Thousands and thousands of them And many of those, if not most of those, have been stuff that they did for their own amusement. Those people can be paid for the work that they've already done. And I've done this transaction a couple times trying to get to this point. I saw a guy out there who did some incredible stuff. I said, "Hey, could I buy that from you? License that from you?" "Yeah, sure." What do you want? "How does $100 sound?" "Oh my God, $100." He's already done the work. So that's something else that's there. If this thing gets rolling and when it gets rolling and starts to develop a reputation, a bit of a presence, and we make it clear, look, we're looking for submissions. We're looking for freelancers to do this. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I know that. But the thing that keeps coming back to me is the vibe I'm trying to capture. I don't watch TV anymore. I haven't watched network TV in a long, long time, or anything that looked like network TV. I watch exclusively, individually created content on YouTube. And some of it is fantastic. Guys like Doomcock, Drinker, Nerdrotic, all the rest of these guys. All of the fan art that's on YouTube, all of this stuff is just, some of it's not very good, but all of it's well-intentioned and loved, and some of it's much better than what the professionals put out. So when you get the DeviantArt thing and all the writing and all the YouTube channels, all the rest of it, my intent would be that this would be created by users. It'd be user-generated content. And that's something new. One of the reasons I feel so strongly about this is because watching what's going on out there, and especially hearing guys like Nerdrotic and Doomcock talking about it, Doomcock's last 2 or 3 episodes, one of them is they're going to make Batman gay or bi, one of those two, as if there's a difference. He's going to kiss a guy. That's DC. On the way in to work today, I heard that Marvel is talking about getting Chris Evans back to make Captain America again, in order to make him less American. And Chris Evans said, oh, he's really down for that. He'd love to come back and do something to make Captain America less disgustingly American. Okay, so this is sort of the meta for the whole thing, right? This is why we're doing what we're doing. Because let's take Star Trek. You've got a man with a vision. You got Gene Roddenberry. He's got a vision of what the future could look like, and he's not just like, it'd be kind of cool. He believes he can change the world that way. He believes that there's an optimistic, multiracial future that's free, and this is America. America's on the bridge of the Enterprise. This is what our country is. We're the Federation. The Klingons are the Russians. The Romulans are the Chinese. We're the good guys. Let's go spread that message. And that message had a huge effect on me, hence the Gorn Captain back there and all the rest of the stuff you can't see. So, you've got this guy with the vision, and he produces the original TV show. And then 10 years goes by, and then he does the movies. The first movie is kind of, and then he gets, even Roddenberry started getting softer and softer. Next Generation, the first episode of Next Generation, there are men in skirts and there's kids running around on the Enterprise. You may not remember that, but I do, because I kind of got off right about then. That's about when I said, I don't think so. So he starts to get softer and stuff, but it had so much momentum that it just went on and on and on, basically stayed true to itself for 20, 25 years, 30 years maybe. Wrath of Khan is 40 years old, and the latest iterations of Star Trek are the antithesis of what Roddenberry wanted. First of all, the ships are dark and metallic. It's dark out there. It's dark in the Expanse universe too. It's very dark. Now, Star Wars universe isn't dark, but it's not really lit either. It's not correctly lit. So you've got this dark metallic Enterprise now, and inside the bridge of the Enterprise, it's this Enterprise with Christopher Pike at the console, or now they've got another Captain Kirk. They all look like male models. They have no character. The guy's playing Pike is interesting, but they put his hair up to here just so you wouldn't take him too seriously. And now it's a dystopia. The Federation is filled with social justice warriors and vile and horrible people. This Admiral in Picard, who's about as bad as Admiral Holdo in Star Wars, this whining, bitching, nasty me that you have the effing nerve. You're going to talk to your, forget who Picard is, you're going to talk to a Starfleet officer that way? Which brings me kind of back to the thing I keep coming back to all the time, and that is that the people that are writing this stuff, unlike Roddenberry and unlike the original writers, the people that are writing this stuff now don't have any idea. Forget about the science. They don't have any idea what the military is like. They have no idea. Much bigger than that. It's not even that they don't understand the military or the language. They don't understand how loyalty works. They don't understand how discipline works. They don't understand what being cool is. If you look at this new Lord of the Rings garbage, the Rings of Power thing, they really think that what made Lord of the Rings so impressive was somebody in armor saying big words. And I'll just do this off the top of my head. I swear to God, I haven't practiced on this, but let me give you an idea of what these people think like a rousing speech, like a Henry V speech, or like Aragorn's speech. But today is not that day. Here, I'll give you what the pablum version of this is, because all they hear is what it sounds like. They don't understand what's underneath it. They don't get the structure of it. They just are mimicking the tone, right? They don't understand what was so motivating about that. They just think it's, all I have to do is get up here and use these certain words and use a certain tone. So off the top of my head, here we go. You're looking out at your people, said, well, we've been through an awful lot in order to get here, but the thing that's kept us together is the thing that's made us the strongest. It's our commitment to each other. It's our acceptance of who we are and what we are. And today is the day that we are going to stop being what they think we are and be what we are going to be and what we've always meant to be. Today is the day that we're going to undo the terrible injustice that's been done out there. And together, we are going to accomplish this. And I know that you're worried about it, but I can tell you, if you believe in yourself, I believe in myself. And together we will go out there and no idea. None. They don't hear the music. They just hear the notes. So they just continue to put out this crap. And the reason I said that I am trying to make this as open source as possible is because if you keep it open sourced, at least in spirit, then you never get to the point where you are so far away from the vision that you're now the antithesis of it. So why is Star Trek anti-Star Trek today? Why is it the antithesis of what Star Trek used to be? Why is it mean-spirited? Why is it so racially conscious? Why is it so tribal, so dark, so cynical? Why? Well, because the people who own Star Trek aren't Gene Roddenberry anymore, and it's not Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball owning it either. They're a big part of why Star Trek happened. Desi Lou. It's not people who care anymore. And it hasn't been people who've cared for a long time. It's just a bank account for them now. And they think that the people who watch Star Trek or Star Wars or any of these other things that they've ruined, Captain America, Batman, all of it, they think that, these guys really like the suit. So as long as what we put out has the suit on it or the logo, then they'll buy anything. And so they start to go off into a corner where they start to create something that's the antithesis of what people liked. And then when the people who liked the stuff originally don't like this, the first thing you do is they attack the fans for being trans, homo, misogynist, phobic, bigot, Nazi, fascist murderers. We live in an era now where it is not possible to write anything that's true. Forget about science fiction, any kind of fiction. You cannot write any fiction today based on truth unless you are self-employed, unless you are working for people like the fans. And And that is something that we should be really trying to protect ourselves against. All of this stuff that's become canon is canon because Disney owns Star Wars. And if Disney wants to make Star Wars woke, they can. But if it never gets to that point where there's somebody who's got the reins, the legal control, and the bank account and says, yeah, make whatever you want to. I guess all this, I know this all sounds very disjointed because it is. And one of the things that I like doing these shows for is because it helps me get my own thinking in place. But if you look at at the raping that they did to Indiana Jones, which is not finished, by the way, the rumors on Indy 5 are Indiana Jones is not only going to die, his female assistant's going to go back in time and become Indiana Jones. There's rumors that they're going to remake the original trilogy of Star Wars. I don't know how much of this is true, and I don't care. I believe all of these things because of what I've seen, because of the destruction and the damage that I've already seen. So I'm not doing the members forum today. I'm not. The members forum I will be for Stratosphere Lounge and Facebook and all the rest. This is a completely new show. This isn't like Stratosphere Lounge 2. So you can certainly bring them with you and put them in the comment section next time. But that's what we're going to be doing with this thing, I think. Fans wouldn't allow this to happen. And so what's happened to the pop culture is essentially what's happened to the culture. It was taken from the hands of the people who were participating in it and who loved it, who put love into it. It's been taken away from them and put in the hands of a very, very small group of very cynical people who only have two objectives. One of them is to make as much money as possible off of this thing. I'm not above making money by any means, but if that's your primary motivation, to kill the goose that laid the golden egg and squeeze all the eggs out of it, that's not honorable or morally noble. And the second thing is to use something that people like as a capsule into which they can put something that people don't like and get them to ingest it. This is the Trojan horse issue. So I'll get to the comments and stuff in a minute. Right now it's very hard to look at those and try to keep this whole thing on some kind of track. So I think what I'll do is I'll basically say what I want to say, then I'll just do nothing but answer questions. All of this stuff is reaching a critical point now. And I'm convinced not only that this property is the thing that people want, I'm also convinced that this is the way to do it. Is that the democratization of entertainment is not only necessary, it's good. Nobody goes to the movies anymore. Top Gun made a ton of money, and so did this latest Spider-Man movie, but they cannot keep. They're going out of business. It's over. Days of going to the movies, I think, are pretty much on their way out. So it no longer takes $300 million to make something that looks good. It takes $300,000 or maybe $3 million. And so the mega trend that I'm looking at here and the wave I'm trying to ride is the traditional sources of entertainment that we all grew up with are corrupted by politics and venality of money. And they're not coming back. And that enormous empty hole out there is something that everybody feels and feels despair about. And you can see it in Doomcock and Gary and Critical Drinker, all of them. You can see the anger that I feel too, just the anger at what they've done to it and the contempt for how unbelievably untalented and cowardly these people are. So that's real. And that's because of Disney owns Star Wars and Disney owns everything. There's 7 entertainment companies in the world, and they're all beholden to China and to BlackRock. So that's the world we live in now. And if it turned out that this technical revolution hadn't brought some benefits with it, then we'd just be boned. That's all there is to it. But we are in a world now where, as I mentioned with DeviantArt and so on, and many fan films that I've seen on YouTube, where people can just sit down on a home computer and put out really amazing stuff. If all somebody has to do is just kind of coordinate all this talent that's sitting out there just waiting to do something, memorable and noble, and not just some 20th iteration of some game that's 30 years old, or some reboot of a reboot of a reboot that's, it's not just me. I know it's not just me. It's just so lame. It's so tiresome. It's so played out. It's so old. All of the themes are so old. All of the mechanisms are so old. I'm so tired of all of it. It's just, the earth is dying. Got it. Okay, yeah, the future is going to be metal structures with no lights and dripping water. Fine. And space battles are going to be visible laser beams and fighter planes and bombers dropping bombs out of space bomb bay doors, and okay, and we're going to be the bad guys, and all of this stuff. They're going to have these little women punching these gigantic men unconscious, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and it's just time to go. Now, one of the questions that I've been getting repeatedly here, and I think it's important, is when am I going to do my first tutorials? Because all this stuff is tied in together, you see. All the stuff about the politics is tied into where the entertainment industry is. The democratization of the entertainment industry is tied into things like Unreal Engine tutorials. So let me switch to that, because that's the other thing I'm going to be doing on this channel. I plan to do essentially the development of the colonies as a specific project, the discussion of future projects like doing the Battle of Taffy 3, doing the original Aurora story, doing Big Bat Problems, other projects, that kind of thing. Definitely doing pop culture commentary on what's happening out there in terms of the world. But maybe more importantly than anything, I'm going to be doing a series of tutorials on how to use these tools in order to circumvent the poisoned storytelling thing. So let me spend a little bit of time on that. I'll give you the warm-up for what the first tutorial is going to be. I'll dress rehearsal it, basically. So it's very clear what this animation subset is going to be. I'm going to teach people how to make movies in Unreal Engine. If you're here to learn about game mechanics, you're in the wrong place. I don't know anything about them. I have no interest in them. But if you're here to make cinematic product using this astonishingly powerful tool, then I will get you there from the ground up. So here's the very first tutorial that I'm going to do. It's very simple. They're all going to be 5-6 minutes long. The first tutorial in understanding and making movies in Unreal is going to be about keyframes. It's not going to be about lighting or anything. It's about keyframes. If you don't understand keyframes, you can never use computer-based animation. Everything is based on keyframes. And I'm going to keep it real simple. So here's how the tutorial on keyframing will go. Imagine you're watching a screen capture of Unreal as I talk. Let's start with the basic scene. Fantastic. We just got a blank space. That's all we need. Let's bring in a sphere and we'll plop it on this surface. There's the sphere. Okay? There it is. Now, let's go down to our timeline and let's go 100 frames into the future. And we move the sphere. And we play back the animation. What happens? Nothing. Why? Because we didn't set an initial keyframe. So let's go back, put the sphere where we started from. Now we're going to mark a keyframe right here. Just hit this button, mark a keyframe. That's telling Unreal that on the first frame, this is where the sphere is going to be. Now, skip ahead to the end of the sequence, 100 frames later. Now, move the sphere over here, mark another keyframe. Now play it back. What happens? You'll see the sphere will move from here to there. Fantastic. So far, so good. But there's something else to understand. Watch how the sphere moves. It starts out from 0. It accelerates. Then it moves. And then it slows down. Those are keyframes that are intentionally smoothing out that action. Most of the time, you don't want that. So what you need to do is you need to take these two keyframes and you need to switch them from spline-based to linear. That means that it's going to start and stop at the same speed. Here's the difference. Here's one ball, here's two balls. The first ball is moving with the spline-based keyframes, slow, 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 fast, 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 slow, 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 slow. And this one's just moving at a constant speed. Okay, that's the first lesson. Everybody understand that? That's what a keyframe is. Parenthetically, one of the reasons that computer animation can look so bad, and one of the reasons that it took so long to really understand this, is because how perfect it is. Later in the series, we're going to talk about how to remove perfection from computer images. When they look fake, it's because they're too perfect. That movement is mathematically perfect. It is precisely 1/100th of the distance from here to there. Things don't really move that way. But for the time being, this is the first thing we want you to do. Start a frame. I want you to grab a sphere, and I want you to move it from here to there in 100 frames, and then change the way it's moving based on the keyframes. Great. One final lesson on keyframes before we go. Take that end keyframe that's at 100, okay, and just slide it over to 50. Just move it. Now what happens? Well, the sphere still goes from here to there, but it does it in half the time, and then it stops. What I'm saying there is that the closer you move these two keyframes, if the distance is the same and you compress the time, the object has to move faster. If you want it to move slower, you need to go forward in time and add a keyframe at 200. That'll slow it down. See how that works? Okay. So that's basically it. Then the next step is something that builds on this. Now we're going to have a scene where we're going to get a character walking across a floor. Okay. So here's an animation. Here we're just bringing the mannequin. Here's a walking loop animation. Fantastic. Start him here, move him there, give it 200 frames, watch it go. Okay, he starts off slow, and then he ends up slow. So let's go make those linear keyframes better. But look at his feet. If he's skating, your two frames, your distances are too far apart. If he's slipping, your distances are too close. And all you have to do to make his feet match are move the distance. We're not going to worry about the frame rate. That's the other way to do it. Move the distance. If he's skating, he's going too far. He's sliding because his center is being moved faster than his feet are going. So you have to bring that end distance frame closer. If, on the other hand, he's slipping, then he's not going far enough. Marisha, you and IK, honestly, I think it's just beyond belief. I really don't know what to say about it. It really is a tutorial on IK. Okay, I haven't used IK in a long time, and I don't expect to. I'm talking about using stock animations to do these things. Got nothing to do with that. So, in any event, you've got this basic fundamental problem solved. Now you can have your characters walk around. Now you can start doing other things. Then you can start getting into things like the lighting and the sets and all the rest of this stuff. And ultimately, what's going to come down to is learning how to make movies is not about learning the software techniques. Not here to learn Unreal when it's all said and done. You're really here to train your eye and your ear. The animations that I've got that I'm going to start putting up that are already on the channel, they've just been hidden for 2 years, look really good for starting animation because long before I got into Unreal, I developed an eye. I know what looks good and what doesn't look good. I know how to compose a frame. I know how to compose a shot. So all of this to say that not only are we going to be producing something that is crowdsourced, but we're going to be doing our very best to make all of these tools accessible and achievable to as many people as possible, because this is how you get around this giant fortress of evil that's over my shoulder behind me here. It's just miserable. I have no doubt that Marvel will bring back Captain America and make him have some adventure where he realizes how awful it is to be American. There's nothing we can do about that. Nothing we can do about that. Disney's going to continue to make the garbage that they continue to make. And there's nothing we can do about that either. This is the thing that's the ultimate driver for me, is this is something we can do something about. This is something that they can't ruin because they don't own it. And they never will. So it's going to be just little progressions. Fortunately, all of the renderings and things that I did over the course of the last 2 years still exist. And when I turn them on one by one, that's going to be the lesson for this set. I'll have it kind of pre-rendered, right? So if you can get a character to walk, here's how you put two animations together, and here's how you blend them. Here's how you deal with sight lines. Here's how you deal with head turning. If you look at the Dias for Dungeon animation, I could not have done that with the helmets off because I just simply wouldn't have had the time. But what really sells that animation is the head motion, and especially the eye motion. That's what sells it. And these are the things that people never seem to get right. When I look at people who are learning Unreal, and I look at what the animations they're doing look like, they have the same access to metahumans as I do, and they're using iPhone capture the same way I do. But their eyes are just kind of dead because they're saying their lines like this. They're saying their lines, and they're looking into the camera, and they say their lines, and then they say, okay, and there's the climax of the speech, and then that's how it works. And so you get this, even though you're eye tracking perfectly, and that should get you out of the uncanny valley, but if you're just keeping your eyes steady, it doesn't work. So when I did Dias for Dungeon, all of the physical body stuff, the walking and stuff, those are stock animations. And I had to choreograph them and block them the way I would on stage, and we'll get into that too. But once I had the actors moving, once I had their bodies moving, the head and the eyes and the face, even underneath the helmet, that was a completely separate take, 100% separate take. So I would have these two characters walking along, and I'd have the dialogue recorded in Zoe's lines and my squeaky lines and Zoe's awesome lines and my squeaky lines, right? And they're just walking along, and I'm listening to the dialogue. I'm not going to have lip sync on these, and that's fine because you got to start someplace. But as I'm listening to this, I say, okay, the guy on the left is doing the talking. So during this 4 or 5 second bit, he's got to be talking. You know, when you talk, you move your head around a little bit. If you're talking to somebody over there, you look at them like that. You know, when you think about that, you go back. You don't want to fall down the stairs, but you know, I don't know. That thing's kind of so you got to do that. And then the guy who's listening during that 4 second period has got to be walking along and just kind of that kind of thing. And when you get those things, because you have to get the head motion and the eyes at the same time. If you don't, that won't work. When you turn your head, you move your eyes first. You look at what you're turning to. But we have the technology to do that right now. And time again, when I would watch that Dias for Dungeon animation, which is linked right here on Stratosphere Studio, the thing that kept impressing myself, were the times when I could see the character's eyes, and those eyes are alive, and that's actually technically very simple to do, but most people just don't know not how to do it, they just don't know to do it. And of course you can go too far with that. You know, you can make your head motions like this, and these things are simple. And I think that given a series of tutorials, you're not only showing newcomers, and they're 6, 7, 10 years old, I don't care. 100, it's fine with me too. I started pretty late on this. But if you can get this stuff right, it's easy. It's just that nobody knows how to do it. They don't know how to do it, and they don't know what to do. But if you had a series of tutorials that explain to them, okay, so here's how we do the head and face capture with the iPhone, right? It has to be an iPhone. Sorry, it's not up to me. That's just the way it is. iPhone's got the facial recognition stuff, so show you how to get it set up. Now, is your metahuman behaving the way your face is? Yes, it's doing exactly what your face is. Okay, how do you record that? How do you get the head of the metahuman onto an armored body or into a spacesuit? I'll show you how to do that too. Now it's time to actually play ball. So, do your scene, act out both of the heads, and don't forget where you are in space. You're going to be sitting here, and the iPhone's going to be recording your face and your head turns. And if you stare at the screen, you're going to get nothing. So when you do this scene, you got to think about who are you talking to. I'm talking to Zoe's character. I did all of Zoe's. Zoe did the voices, but I did all of his head moves. I did all of the looks. When Zoe laughed, I had to do that. I've got to laugh, so he goes ha 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 ha, and the head's just standing there. It's doing nothing. So when Zoe is laughing, I go, and it works. So I will tell people, so do it. Don't forget that the person you're talking to is over here. And don't forget that you're walking, because you can't keep looking at somebody like that if you're walking through the forest. After a moment or two, you're going to fall down. Just go through it. And the one thing I'm really looking forward to, and I'm hoping this will happen, frankly, but I'm really looking forward to having people posting their animations or posting links to their animations so we can look at them, critique them, show you how to make things a little better, show you what maybe was throwing things off here, congratulate you on the things that you've already done right, and give them something like encouragement in terms of, look, you've got this absolutely down. I wouldn't waste any more time on this particular thing because you got this nailed. Now, here's where your prep is. Marusha's got it exactly right. It's like teaching them like you'd be teaching real actors. And I'm a theater major. It's what I spent, 7 years of college down the drain. So all of these things can be done in tiny little steps, and we're going to go and recreate the steps that I learned them in. And I've got 40, 50 animations on this channel that are private because they weren't ready to be released yet. So the first one is a flight over a landscape terrain. That's all it is. And that is a keyframe issue, right? You can't move the camera across the landscape until you know how to move something. So that's basically how we're going to do it. And my hope would be that we do these things in sequence and that people can, you don't have to come in at the same time, you just have to catch up. Get to the point where on any particular next tutorial, here's what we're going to cover on this, and then all you little puppies out there, go out and make something, make it, upload it to your own YouTube channel, and then let's look at it. We'll watch it together. Boom. And that will be building the talent pool that we need for this thing going forward. Because, by the way, if people are watching animation tutorials, they're also going to be picking up a little bit of the morality and a little bit of the ethics from me. Bill, what software do you use? If you put the videos up on Skillshare or somewhere, you can monetize them too. That's a very interesting idea. I'm curious to know how much monetization is in it, because I got to tell you, my inclination is to not. If it means monetizing so that other people, if it means that I'm reducing the exposure, I'm probably not interested. Eric Blake says, what software do you use for editing your animated clips? I edit everything in Premiere Pro. I edit all my political stuff in Premiere Pro. I should mention parenthetically that I have been working on nonlinear editors since nonlinear editors came out. When I did Grazing in Florida in 1993, we used nonlinear software, which was basically the first time you could edit on a computer. Nonlinear editing is editing on a software. It's the exact same thing as a word processor. Then in 93, I think the one was called DVision. And DVision was outputting an image at 340 by 220, something like that. 430 by 320, maybe that much. So not super high resolution. In order to get that box to work, I had to go out and buy 2 hard drives that are about this big, about the size of a loaf of bread, and heavy. And they were brand new Mac Store Panthers, and they had 1 gigabyte of memory each. But that allowed me to do it. So one of the things I'm most proud about, to be honest with you, with the DS for Dungeon thing, is not just the animation. I did all the sound design, and while I didn't compose or record the music, I had to select the music and I had to time the music. And these are editing skills, not animation skills. And these I've had for 30 years. So I can not only do that, I can also keep people, showing you how to edit things. One of the things that is common in it's common in Unreal because it's common in game cinematics. But basically, Unreal is set up so that you can imagine that in Unreal you've got the sword fight I have with the monster, right? So here's how we built that thing. There are available for purchase, relatively reasonably, $20 or something like that. There are matched animations. These are motion capture animations. I didn't touch them. They come right out of the box, just drop them on the characters. But they're matched so that one guy's attack matches the other guy's defense, and so on. And you attacker, defender. So you attacker, defender, and then defender, attacker. Flip around. Now you got back and forth. So that sword fight thing is really fun. When you get everybody into position and you've got these stock animations doing this thing, the characters essentially do what they're going to do. And Unreal is set up so that if you place all of your cameras on the sequence timeline, it will switch cameras as you render it. As you render the sequence out, it'll be camera 1, then camera 3, then camera 2, and camera 4. That's a bad idea, right? It's a bad idea because you cannot play with the time that way. When I would do it with a 4-camera setup, instead of trying to get the sequence exactly the way I wanted it and then just rendering that, I rendered all of camera 1, all of camera 2, all of camera 3, and all of camera 4. I brought them into Premiere. I grouped them. And then I could cut back between the angles anytime I wanted to. But much more importantly than that, if it turned out that I just have this moment where I'm doing something and the guy's doing something, if you're trying to do this in real time, you can't catch them both. But if you're recording each one to be on, then you can open the time up, right? So I can have what would be a simultaneous reaction of me and this demon, right? In the Unreal Engine, they're happening simultaneously. So I either have to decide, do I want to see him or do I want to see me? But if you render them all out and you get into the editing, then you can go to him and stretch out his reaction and then come back and take all of my reaction. Technically speaking, they didn't happen at the same time, but nobody knows that. Nobody has any way of knowing that. So all of the editing stuff is it. But the thing I was trying to talk about was things like the sound design. I would look at this thing and just putting in footsteps takes the realism level up by 50%. Yes, and sorry, Don Vickery says adjusting the speed of the moves is easier too. Yes, in fact, of the stock animations I used in Dias for Dungeon, I don't think I used any of them at normal speed. I think I slowed all of them down to at least 80%. Because most of these things are rendered at game engine speed, and a lot of these things are, I'm going to do this triple flying loop through the air, and hey, if you want to do that, that's your business. I'm talking about making movies. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about how can you use this thing to tell a dramatic story. And I'll tell you what else this animation has that I don't see anywhere else, and that is it's got close-ups. It's got a lot of big close-ups. That's where the eyes go to work. And knowing how to cut between a wide shot, a two shot, and a close-up, and the rhythm of that's something that you have to learn. And that's something I could teach people. Expanding and compressing the time through editing, all of that stuff. And this is one of the kind of later lessons as you're wrapping up your historical stroll through how this process goes. Going to come a point when you've got your thing pretty much assembled, and it may still be rough, but you've got pretty much looking at it. And then you're going to look at this thing, and you're going to have to ask yourself the most horrible question that ever existed in all of the creative arts. And this is so awful. I hope you're sitting down. But basically, if you really want to know where the real pain comes from, this is it. So you put this thing together. You've been working on it for 6 months. And you're looking at all these things, and you're looking at all the work that went into these scenes. It took me 2 days to get this to get these fire effects right on this one tree, you know. All right. And you're looking at this scene and you're sitting there watching it and you don't want to admit it to yourself, but you're saying, you know, I got to tell you, this thing is slow. It's slow. It's getting slow. And then, if you have the discipline, your brain goes into, do I need this scene? Do I need it? I don't need this scene. And the desire to keep a scene that you've spent 2.5 months working on is so overwhelming that it's almost impossible to ditch. But there it is. When I did I have some good news. I guess I can announce this. I wasn't told to keep it quiet. Spoke to Jeremy 2 days ago. And I'm going to be doing another series for Daily Wire. And again, I would appreciate if you can immediately go running off and congratulating Daily Wire for this. I do not think that I was told not to talk about this, but it has not been officially announced. I understand that not only am I going to be doing a new 6 or 7 part series, but they want me to come in and do video for the Cold War. They're going to make the Cold War like Apollo 11, and the Cold War is 13 episodes, biggest job I've ever done. And so just don't say anything. Just please don't. Okay. I mean, I can't stop you. It's public, but please don't. So it looks like that's going to be done as a movie, and that means that the geniuses over at Daily Wire, the editors and stuff, the producers, are going to get a chance to go in and build that picture. And then I'm also going to basically say, I can help you with some of these visuals. You know, you want shots of an SR-71, I can get you, animations of SR-71 that look really, really real. The series I pitched to him was based on my mood when we found out that we're getting 87,000 armed IRS agents. Thank you for the kind words on them. And so I'm going to be doing a multi-part series on the Soviet secret police, on the history of the Cheka. And I'm going to look at seven. So Felix Dzerzhinsky, who started the Cheka with Lenin. Mezhinsky, who was kind of an erudite fellow who actually kind of liked to play the piano, who was not a guy who got blood all over his face, but he was in charge of the secret police when they starved 10 million peasants. They sent the secret police into the villages to take all their money and put up signs saying, "Don't eat your children." So he was actually in charge of more murders than anybody else. Then you got Genrikh Yagoda, who was kind of a hangdog, sort of, I'm going to impress Stalin by building this White Sea Canal, and it's going to be, it'll take 3 years, and we're going to kill 100,000 prison laborers. And then we're going to sail from I don't remember where it was. I'll check it. I think it was from St. Petersburg to the White Sea. And they built the canal. And they built the canal on the bones of 100,000 people. And when the canal was built, they found out after it was finished that the canal was not deep enough to take any serious shipping at all. So it's utterly useless. And then after Yagoda comes Yezhov, who was 5 foot tall and was around for 1.5 years and probably executed 750,000 people. And then after Yezhov, you get Beria, who was beyond belief. And then I'm going to do Yuri Andropov, and then I'm going to be, I'll end up with Vladimir Putin. So I'm excited about that. As far as the pop culture stuff goes, just got a question from from a political animal about that. I think I'm going to do it kind of as it comes. I mentioned I saw somebody got really slandered. It's old news to some degree, but it's about 1 year old. But yeah, I'm going to keep my mouth shut about this. I think I'll just do it as a kind of a short, because it only takes a few minutes. But somebody put out a hit piece on somebody I like a lot, and it was the most unfair, evil, awful thing. And I know what that's like. I've been on the receiving end of that too. So anyway, so we'll be doing that. I don't know if there's much I can say in terms of like, the latest developments on Star Wars or Captain America that's not done much better by Doom Cochran. And so I think where I'd like to be is a little closer to what Drinker's doing, and not even criticizing movies so much as talk, because he's unmatched at that. I'm interested in why is this movie so bad. He talks about how it's so bad. I'm interested in why. Why is Captain America going to come back and be anti-American? Why are they making Batman gay? Why in the last Terminator movie was it utterly... Why is it that feminists can't write women? Why? Why is it... Why? What's behind it? So that's something I feel like I got some ability with. So, all this, and of course we got to keep doing all the rest of the stuff as well. But it just seems to me that, hang on a sec. Bill, can you look at pairing people interested in writing with people more interested in the animation, or a way we can pair ourselves? Some people have more interested and suited for writing and others with the animation, I should think. That's a great idea, Bart's Treasures, but I'll just start off like this. Nobody's going to be doing any animation except for the studio. When the thing is out and people want to do fan films, that's fine. But the one gatekeeping function that I have to be brutal about is, look, if there's a little slack or something in the way, backstory on a planet or history of a mega corporation, that's one thing. But the one thing that cannot suffer, the thing that has to be absolutely airtight, is the quality of the video that comes out. It's got to be better than anything I've seen. Since we're all over the board here, and what the heck, might as well just kind of get this whole thing shotgun it out. So I've got this model that I love. Here it is. And you've seen it before. This is the exploration ship USS Armstrong, and I've got a purpose for showing you this, because it's enough to make a grown man cry. Okay, so this is my exploration ship. A political animal. If you can hold that comment, I can't look at it right now, but I'm very interested in it. I just can't see it right now, and if I stop and read it, I will stop and read it. Okay, so here's where I'm going with this. Here's this model. I'll zoom it in a little more. And I think it looks fantastic. I love the mesh. I love the actual geometrical shape of this thing. I love it. And it came untextured, so I paid a guy to do the textures, and he did a magnificent job on it. And the thing that is driving me nuts is that I'm not 100% sure about this, but I have a feeling that I'm probably going to have to ditch that. And the reason I'm going to have to ditch it, I suspect, is because, and this is going to be a bear and a half. The reason I suspect I'm going to have to ditch it is because it looks like a computer-generated texture. It looks like a texture on a 3D model. And all of the, it's not landing gear, it's some kind of boom, this thing never lands. All of this stuff, which is so well done, looks like a really excellent computer texture. Look at the stuff inside the yellow box there. I am so reluctant to be doing this. I'll just make it a little bit bigger, because the guy did such tremendous work and I love it so much, but I have been thinking about this a lot. Look at, okay, so look at those textures there in the darker gray area, the stuff inside the yellow area. That's weathering. It's weathering. And this is how computer graphics are done. They're weathered like that. It breaks it up, makes it look less overly clean. But it's a texture. The panels are great, but they're textures. There's one part of this model, to me, and I don't want, again, I'm so reluctant to say this because this guy did exactly what I asked him for, and he did a great job. But to me, I think one of the few parts of this that doesn't look like a texture is the metal there. That metal looks pretty good. The burned metal, the hot metal. And so here's what I'm coming to realize. So here's the history of special effects, right? So you look at this model, okay, and you say to yourself, well, why do we have all these little panels? Not the geometry panels. Just look at the texture, the stuff that's painted on there. I wanted it flush. I didn't want, greebles. I didn't want, raised and lowered panels, which is the same exact effect. It's kind of cheating. So why are those panels there? Well, the reason those little panels are there, you can see them right there, right by the logo in between the door with the red light there. All those little panels are there for the same reason. The panels are there because what they're doing is they're telling your eye that this thing is made up of lots and lots of little pieces, and therefore it must be very big. The first that I'm aware of to use these details, the physical details are called greebles, and I think the technical, the texturing is called Aztecing, I think. But the first ship to use these greebles that I'm aware of was the Discovery in 2001. And what the model makers realized was, okay, if we just have a box, it's going to look like a box. But if we cover it up with these little things that look like valves and little fuel lines and little grates and grills and all this other stuff, it's going to look like we built this thing and assembled it. And they're right, it works. So the reason that we do that is to trick the eye into thinking that it's bigger than it is by showing little tiny details. That's the whole theory behind greebling and Aztecing. But when I looked at this thing, I said to myself, it doesn't look like a tanker. It doesn't look like a container ship tanker. And I realized that the reason it doesn't look like a container ship tanker is because it's too interesting. This is the kind of thing that is going to cause me so much grief and is going to be worth so much effort. I think that's the first time I've ever said it out loud, but I think that's really it, is that it is too interesting to look real. It's too beautiful. It's too on the nose. If you were to take this model and get rid of that texture and replace it with something that was black painted metal or red painted metal or gray painted metal, and all of those details would go away, I think it would look much more real. And so it's not just the ship, it's everything. It's everything that has to be completely rethought. I showed this last week. I'm going to show it again, and I didn't prepare this, so give me a second to find it, but it's worth it. I'll show you what I'm looking for, where I'm trying to go, what the target is. I don't know how well we'll get there. It's going to depend on how much money we have and how big a team and all the rest of it. But give me 1 second here, because this is what Unreal 5 is capable of. And since this is what it's capable of, this is going to be my lodestar. This is where I'm going to be going for inspiration and reassurance. Hang on a second, it's almost there. I got the link, I just got to download it, and then I'll have a look. I showed this before, but it's worth seeing again, and I can put a little groovy narration on there as well. So here we go. This is what I'm aiming for, because this is the current state of the art. This is what we are capable of doing out of the box with Unreal Engine today. So here it comes. Hang on a second. Downloading. Come on, baby. All right, beautiful. Done. All right, let me drag it into the thing here and resize it. What you're about to see, needless to say, is 100% computer generated. And notice that this doesn't look like computer textures, because it's not. This is photogrammetry and physically based rendering. In other words, the reason that what you're about to see looks so good is because it was taken from photographs. There were photographs for the textures and photographs for the models, and it's essentially as good as it gets. Where did I just put that little gumball? I got so many windows open here. I put something over that hides. Where'd you go? Son of a gun. Okay, Bill. Okay. You want to be that way? That's fine with me. God, it'd be nice to have a producer, you know, something like that would be really groovy. All right, I'll do it again. You swine. Yeah, there are days when I really should have just stood in bed. All right, I'll do it again. Hang on. Okay, here we go. Yep, so, and I think that's the, yeah, that is the format. So that is Unreal Engine 5, kids. And the reason that this looks so astonishing is because they didn't have an artist paint those textures. They photographed them. They basically took a photograph and glued it onto the surfaces. And I cannot see any sign that that is CG. I just, it's perfect. It's perfect. Everybody thought it's real footage. It's not. It's Unreal 5. And so to take the entire show to this level is going to be really tough. Now, I thought maybe this is real footage, and then I saw somebody recreate this in and out. Yeah, see, there's your proof. There's your proof. He just turned the sun off. Now he's got a flashlight. So that is where we can go. That's achievable now for free. Unreal Engine 5 is free software. But it is unbelievably big commitment to get to that place. But honestly, this is making me look at everything that I've done so far, or things that I've worked with so far, that make me think it just looks a little computery. I'll let that play for a second. I'm going to check something else real quick. So we were talking before about how I've got all this stuff sitting on the channel that's unshown. So let me show you something. Test that some of you have seen before, but it also, I think, looks very, very good. Just one second. Just keep on looking at that amazing stuff while I find this sucker. Where are you? So here's an example of something that I've got that I think holds up well enough. In fact, I'll show you two different examples, because this will be a fun little sort of introduction to the kind of stuff we'll be talking about. Okay, so when I was starting to do the space renders, I found a spacesuit model, and it looked like the stuff in Star Citizen and all the rest of it, and I thought, okay, that's good enough. Let's use that. So here is here's a test. Probably fastest way to do it is this way. Here's a test I did a year ago in Unreal 4. One second. And at the time, I thought these spacesuits looked really good. Come on, come on, come on. Yes, you can. It says it cannot convert my video, but it can. You swine. Hang on. I just hate the dead air more than anything in the world, honestly. I just despise it. Let's try one more time here. Copy. You over here. There it is. Okay, so this first one was done a year and a half ago, and it uses a science fiction suit that I saw and bought, and I thought looked, pretty good. This is the kind of thing I was talking about before when it's like, how do you take this up to the next level? So just watch this, and you'll notice that the things I've been talking about are as follows. Animation, I think, looks really pretty cool, but the ship looks like it's got a computer texture on, and the spacesuits look like CG spacesuits. So check this out. Let me roll this a couple times. There you go. Okay, look at those suits. They're kind of cool, kind of believable looking, right? High tech. There's the ship. I love that shot, by the way. It's my favorite shot I think I've ever done. And there's the ship, and it looks all beat up and computery and stuff like that, right? I'm going to run it one more time while I go and get this other one here. Okay, so let me compare that to something else that I've also done. So here, on the other hand, is another suit that I found, and this other suit is so good that it made me realize that all the suits I already had were essentially garbage. I had to get rid of them. They just weren't cutting it. And so you have to decide, do you want to go to this extra trouble and really bust your butt to get to this point? Or are you going to just kind of sit and do the 80%, 85% route? And I decided, I want this. So here's, let me get this one for you. Here is another animation I did. The one you saw just now, before you get back to the train station, that was done in Unreal 4. This is done in Unreal 5. And look at the difference in quality on the suits. I know you're looking at the train station again, but you know what that... Okay, here it comes. So, you saw the one at nighttime with the ships, and then look at the difference here. This is a question of just the model is better, and mostly it's the textures, and it's also in the Unreal 5 renderer, which is a good deal better than the 4. So take a look at this and how much more realistic this looks. So you remember the guys at nighttime in the blue suit, right? That would be the old school. This is the new school. This is the kind of stuff we have to get to right here. That looks so much more real to me. It doesn't look like a science fiction suit. It looks like an actual suit. It looks like a suit somebody would actually wear. I think that looks really, really, really good. And to show you just how wonderful things are, so I had to keyframe this guy and move him so that his feet were matching. Then I went in and did the head moves, and then I took this exact same scene, and all I did was change the lighting. I just took the sun out and put in a little moonlight. It's the exact same thing, and the only thing that's different is it is slowed down. This is maybe, 80% of what the other one was. Put different music in there. It's a whole different vibe. But that I can live with. I can live with that. So now I'm certainly not here to try and argue, but this is because this is a really difficult problem to solve. Quibo says, do the 80% first, then build up to 100% later. Yes, but no, there's no question about that. But it's still got to go out the door at 100%. The finished animation is considerably better than the one I released when I did the invisible segment. But I had to get something out the door, just had to. So Kentercat said that the second one was much more immersive. The first one is a story. The Unreal stuff is putting you in the scene. Right. That's it. And all of the stuff in Dia's Free Dungeon is computery stuff. None of it is real. I'll just play this one more time. Nice if I could just do that without having to jump out. Oops. This is what Unreal 5 can do. Things like that camera move. You notice that, see, this is another thing that's cinematic. It's not so much that. It's just I had to put those camera moves in. I had to choose the angle. I had to choose how much it was going to move. I had to figure out where he was going to be when I moved him. How high do I want it? How tight do I want the shot to be? All of this stuff is stuff that we taught. I can't touch the music. I don't think. Maybe I can turn it down. Yeah, sorry, that's better. Eric wants to know: do I see myself remastering Dias for Dungeon, make it look no real? The answer to that question is no. I would like to finish it, but I'm done with it. I'm done with the part one. You can move backwards forever. So anyway, to make a long story short, that stuff that you just saw, if I can get everything to that point, that would be great. Which leaves us with, since this is a new show, I know I've talked about some of this stuff before and shown some of these clips before, but I'm going to do it one more time because this is the other piece of the pie. I have no interest in doing animated stuff. I spent the last 2 hours talking about animation, but I don't want anything to do that looks animated. I don't want anything that looks stylized. I don't want any of that stuff. I want to make photorealistic stuff. And in order to do that, the faces are the weakest part. So I'm going to give you two more examples. One of them is this, honest to God now, I'm going to show you. This is the first thing I ever did with metahumans. Ever. And to me, it's still, I think, the best metahuman acting that I've seen. And I know that's hard to believe, but nevertheless, here it is. So this is my first attempt to do metahumans out of the box. And the reason you can tell it's the first attempt is because, and you probably wouldn't notice it if I didn't tell you, but the suits and the head are not moving, the neck are not moving at all. It's just the faces and the heads. But take a look at this, because I'm very proud of this, and this was done so fast. So this is what the metahumans are capable of, and I'm only showing you this because I think there's one level higher. I'll see if I can turn the sound down. Language warning for this one. Okay, F-bomb coming up. Sorry, it just spur of the moment thing. This show's going to be a little bit looser than the other one, but if you're offended by that, or if it's going to change your opinion of me, this would probably be a good time to jump ahead for a minute or two, because I just ad-libbed this. But nevertheless, I love this. Here we go.
Hey, man, you don't have to like it. I don't like it either. But, look around you, man. There's nothing here. There's nothing here, and there's nobody coming. We are going to have to make it here on our own, or else we're both going to die out here. And that's all there is to it. Now, I don't like it, and you don't like it, but that doesn't make any difference. If we don't start working together, then neither one of us are going to get off this rock ever.
Okay, so that was, I thought, pretty good. I thought it looked pretty good. And to be honest with you, I could probably live with that. But where I'd like to get, and where I feel like we need to get, is to this. And this will be the last example. I think it'll do it for the night, to be honest with you. Because if we can consistently get to what I'm about to show you, then I think it's game over. Really think we're real happy with that if I can get to this point. Yeah, like I said, I couldn't move the helmets because I didn't know how. I didn't know how to do it at the time. But by the way, not only did I do the guy talking, I also had to do all of those reactions, all those lookaways and all that looking down. That's just acting. Acting, man. All right, so I've shown this kind of thing before. I don't know if I've shown this individual one. What you're about to see here is metahumans, which are what you just saw. And it's a combination of new technologies that is, when I say new, I mean this whole procedure is 2-3 months old. So I thought that looked good because I thought it was well acted. And the lighting was just right. But look at the step up here. I'm going to show you deep fakes of Jim Carrey and Tom Cruise onto metahuman actors, and you will see there's going to be moments where you'll see the actual metahuman actor. Look at how much more computery he looks than the other example. In fact, there's one more I'm going to show you. It's even better than this, but I'll show you this now. So take a look at
the
this,
life of mortals
and then I'll
without
go
a
get the
curse.
last one. So hey,
Any
look at that.
high-impact
That's
technology
a
changes the
young-looking
world
Jim
in some
Carrey.
way. Deepfake technology is making great strides in
And
this
they're doing
historical period.
Freeze
What are the
expressions, but
risks?
as it turns out,
I have created a video explaining the risks
They'll
of
have
this
him in motion in
technology.
a second.
Click here to watch it. Now let's see how I turned a
Now
metahuman
that-
into Jim Carrey and
I
later
know it's a
into
little
Tom Cruise.
jumpy, but that's not got anything to do
With
with
just
the problem.
one click, I can change the
That
expressions
is
or facial animations
that is
generated
that's
by a 3D
fine.
model
If I can
on
get
which I
there,
have
I'm
superimposed
a happy
deepfake
camper.
made with
And this next
deepfake
one will show
lag.
you even more dramatically how much of a difference this makes. Now, the reason that they're using Tom Cruise and Jim Carrey is because the guy who's doing this is essentially just a guy. I'm actually going to talk to about maybe hiring if I can, or at least for a couple of demos. And so he's got the metahuman and he's got the technology, he's got the software, but what he doesn't have is he doesn't have a target. He doesn't have a face to map on it. And the reason they're using Jim Carrey and Tom Cruise is because these guys have had so many pictures of them taken that the deepfake software knows which expressions to go to. But the beautiful thing about that is that if we are dealing with this,
If you like this video, please like and
we don't
subscribe
have to worry
and
about
write
that
on
because
comments
we
what you
can
think.
get the actors
Stay
and just
safe.
take 10,000 pictures of them. And so we get better quality on unknown faces. Come on, don't give me any trouble. Because this one is actually mind-blowing difference. Good. All right, so this one is as clear an example as I can find. And then I think we'll call it a night here. So take a look at this. Exact same situation as the one you're looking at now. It's taking, that's the deep fake. There's Tom Cruise with the deep fake. And it's almost done. 6 seconds to go. That is fabulous. But if you want to see something really amazing, take a look at this. Same exact technique, nothing new. It's just a different example. But wow, what an example. So this is not Scarlett Johansson. Look at the original metahuman model, and then look what they do when they put the deep fake on top of it, and tell me that this isn't the most incredible difference that you've ever seen. Okay, so that's the metahuman, right? There's your metahuman. Okay, Ruby. And there's Scarlett Johansson. So that's the metahuman is coming off of the person with the camera. They're getting the metahuman, and then they're deep faking Scarlett Johansson onto the metahuman. And that looks photoreal to me. I am fine with that. And this guy is just a guy, and the compositing could be improved, but look at the difference between those two. That's perfect. Metahuman on the left, deep fake metahuman on the right. Look at the difference. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I thought when metahumans came out, I thought, man, they're so good, but look at this. Look at this. Okay, so to close this out, what's the workflow for this? How do we get this? What's the steps that we have to do? What you just saw was a person, it might have been a male, would be surprised if it wasn't actually, because I think it was a guy doing this. So you got a guy who's looking at an iPhone. The iPhone is tracking his features. It's capturing his eye movements, the smiles, all that other stuff. technically speaking, I think actually it may have been stock metahuman animations, but put that aside for a second. So you got a camera on a guy, the guy's acting out the part and doing all this other stuff. That information gets mapped onto a metahuman. The more the metahuman looks like the person it's supposed to represent, the better this is going to be. So if we wanted to make a digital me, and I'm going to be working on this in the next couple of weeks, here's the procedure. I get a metahuman to look as much like me as possible, and I've got one that's pretty close. And then we take video of my face as just as as clean as possible against a green screen or a black screen or something, just as clear as possible. And you get all the different angles. You're taking photographs of my skin, so all these groovy spots and blemishes come too. And then you also have to get me doing all of these expressions, reading all of these phonemes are called. What's a 1 wink, 2 winks, pull up, pull down, all that stuff. When you take those pictures of me and give it to the AI, it will then look at the metahuman and try to match the metahuman's expression with the closest example of mine, and it doesn't have to be a single frame. It can say, oh, the eyes in frame 296 look really dead on, but the smile in frame 380 is a little bit closer, and we'll morph these things. So that's how the deepfake works. So the workflow is we get the actor that we want. We then make a metahuman. Here's the part where we can break the chain. We get the actor that we want, and that actor can look like anybody because all it's doing is looking at your facial expressions. That actor then gets converted into a metahuman that looks as much like the actor that we want, the target actor. And that can be a model, can be anybody, right? So if it were me to play one of the leads, and don't worry, because it's not going to be, because I learned my lesson from that thing. But just for the sake of it, if I was going to be the starship captain and I found an actor who looked like I wanted the captain to be, then I would record my face like this. Then we'd make a metahuman who looked like that guy, and then we'd hire that actor, and he could be a model, doesn't even have to be an actor. In fact, it doesn't matter at all. Then we hire a model to come in who's got the face we want, and we take an hour's worth of pictures of him doing all of this other stuff. That's food for the deep fake. Then we take the animation of the facial capture, map it onto the metahuman, and then the metahuman puts the deep face pictures on there, and now we've got a real cast. I mean, and this is being done on home computers right now. This is not some giant expensive thing. It's two things. It requires time, it's time consuming, and it also requires, and this is the deciding thing, this is the thing I'm going to get across in these tutorials as much as possible. You have to understand what looks good and what doesn't. If your eye can't tell the difference, then all the technical skill in the world isn't going to help you. If you can type as many words as you want to, but if you don't have an ear for dialogue, if it doesn't sound real, then it's not going to help. And by the way, there are and have been for 5-6 years now a number of photographs of people that don't exist. Let's see if I can. This will be a still, so I can do this real fast. Because that's a little creepy too. Oh, well, how about that? Here's a website called. Do I just have to refresh? Yes, I do. Oh, this is awesome. Well, give me 3 real quick. Okay, check this out, guys. This can blow your mind too. The website is called This Person Doesn't Exist. That person doesn't exist. That face belongs to nobody. Nobody has that face. That face is a combination of artificial intelligence drawing people. Okay? So that face does not exist. Here's another face that doesn't exist. That face does not exist. Quibo says every human on the planet has dozens of duplicates. Yes, but they're not perfect duplicates. There are people that look like other people. That's not even really the point. These are not real people. That's the point. I don't have to pay these people because they're not real people. They're just plain, go Gators, Alex. This is amazing to me. It's amazing to me, right? So you can, now assuming you could get these images done in 3 dimensions, because you'd need more than one shot, but you can even design the faces of the actors. You can even design your cast. And I'm just blown away by all of this. Come on, with all this stuff. It's amazing to me. All right. Well, anyway, this has been a ramble fest, but in any event, we got the first one out of the way, so there's something to be said for that, I suppose. Yeah, I've heard good things about Person of Interest. I met Jim Caviezel, and he's a really very, very good actor. He's a little distant. While Ginger says, as a linguist, I'd be very interested to hear more about recording phonemes. If you really do just record the phonemes, that could be why it doesn't come off as quite real to me. There's also something called allophones. Learn something every day. Which are variations on how you pronounce the phonemes depending on the context. Maybe there's room for improvement in speech animation if that were taken into account. I'm sure I'm not the first to think of that, though. You may not be the first to think of it, Wild Ginger, but you are, by God, the first person to mention it to me. I'll get to that one second there, political item, before we go. That's an interesting idea. So if you read a line like this and you just read your line, and then you read the same line like a Southern gentleman, you put a little spin on it, give it a little drawl, sort of an accent, some sort of dignified kind of Southern accent. You're right, the lips don't move the same way. And that is fascinating, actually. Wish there was a deep fake voice. There is a deep fake voice. I did it for myself, and I dropped it in there. And I had a part of that whole D word section in the animation is done by a British guy in his 60s, and it's amazing. It was my lines, it was my recording, it was deep faked, but it kind of needs to be me, no matter how good or bad it was. Okay, so political animals. To say, Bill, some feedback on Diaz for Dungeon video. My daughter at the end said to me, so the video was talking about Disney, right? Proud dad moment, and what incredible damage Disney has done to that brand, that a 14-year-old girl's reaction. My son loved the D-word duel. Thank you. I love the D-word duel too. First of all, I realized immediately that it was not only possible to take it as a Disney reference, that unless I really hammered it, otherwise it would be inevitable to take it as a Disney reference because of the castle. And because it's got the D, it's got that old school D that looks like the D in Disneyland. So yeah, and it's not, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have any problem with that people saying, oh, he's taking a shot at Disney. Because Disney's become pure evil. So we've got the big D with the Eye of Sauron, and yeah, it looks like Disney. When you get into the word duel, I had to do the dialogue. I had to probably record it twice, or ask Zoe to record it 2 or 3 times because it sharpened a little bit. And he says, perhaps we might guess at what, mayhaps we could guess at what the encircled D doth represent. So that's as far as I was willing to go. Because, as if you don't know this, this is the official logo of the Democrats, and the short form of what I was really trying to get was this. I would like people to every time they see this logo from now on, I would like people to, this is the entire purpose of it really at this point now. I'm so happy with the word duel thing. But now when people see this, I would like people to think, mayhaps we may guess at what words this encircled D doth represent. And listen to those words, right? I mean, they're just delicious, disgusting, dishonest, droopy, dreary, drunk, and the execution, I'm very, very pleased with. I did a fair amount of salvaging my performance, and the thing. What we did was when we recorded that, I had a list, sent it to Zoe, and got him on Skype. We recorded them at the same time. I said, yeah, a lot of people have asked about deplorable. I just put it in there. Maybe should have not, but I can't take it out, so there it is. It's just another word that goes by. But they're using it unironically. So Zoe and I were reading this as fast as we could, and I cut it together to cut out the mistakes, and I thought, this is pretty good. And then I realized the faster this goes, the funnier it's going to get. So then in Unreal, before I did, I'm sorry, in Premiere, before I did the animation, before I did the head move thing, I took out the spaces between them. So I would say deplorable, so we go detestable, demonic, like that. So I take the spaces out. So now it's deplorable, detestable, demonic, and it was much better. And I realized still can do it. So then what I did was I actually had them overlap. The dialogue is coming so fast that each one of us are stepping on the end of the last one's words. Just for the sake of the filmmaking discussion, I actually went too far with that. I actually overlapped them so much that I could no longer understand them. That I was losing comprehension. So I backed them out just a little bit, but they like overlap, I don't know, 10% maybe, something like that. And it's the speed that is just hilarious. And again, just so you all understand the procedure and how this stuff can be taught, but it does take some teaching. So how do we pull that scene off? Do I have a short version of that? I know I have somewhere, because if I do, I'll just play it. I don't want to play the whole thing, but I thought I had somewhere on here. Let me see. This will be fast if I can. If it's on the desktop, if it's not on the desktop, then I'm not looking for it. I'll play it next time. But I don't think I see it. Let me see. Nope. All right. Well, in any event, no, it's not there. Okay. So, okay. So now what I've got is I've got an audio track. Disgusting, deplorable, detestable, but back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I've got that audio track before I do the recording. So now I've got the two characters standing there. I've got stock idle animations, which is just a body just standing there. But the heads are not doing anything. They're just staring straight ahead. And so then I would turn on the iPhone and I would put the headphones on and I would play that segment. And I don't have to match lip syncing, thank God, but I would be talking and then the script is saying, methinks thy Latin doth need burnishing, good prince. And so my thinks thy Latin must be burnishing, good prince. It's just taking the head moves and the eye moves. Dividibus populum doth mean we divide the people. But there stands the letter D. And so the eyes are doing what they're supposed to do. And then when we got to the real fast stuff, it was just kind of like, it's boring. And there you go. So that's that. Here's some more. Oh, the T in tar is aspirated, meaning it comes out with a puff of air. The T in star doesn't have that. This is fantastic. Hold your hand in front of your mouth as you say, yes, because that's why you put pop frames in front of microphones, so that you don't say. By the way, you'd be interested in this as a linguist. my lovely wife Natasha cannot make those sounds. They don't. To her, English sounds like a locomotive leaving the station. It's just nothing. They just don't do it, and it's just charming, and they can't, and because of they don't do any of that stuff. I guess they're too busy drinking. They don't make the so she can't say Hawaii. She can't say Harry Potter ate hamburgers in Hawaii. She says Gary Potter ate gamburgers in Kauai. Just makes me smile every time I hear it. They, on the other hand, have a bunch of and she'd say it and I'd say it, and it's like, I just said exactly what you said. No, you missed it completely. So anyway, there you go. All right, so this was a strange day. It was a real frustrating day trying to get the YouTube thing going. But the second I put the stream up live and it was just recording the feed, it didn't. See, I couldn't do any of the things that I showed here the way it was set up. So I'm going to have to spend some more time with it. But the second I lit it up, we had 15 people there right away. So we will be doing this thing streaming live to YouTube. But this one is going on to the new channel, which if you're watching, put a link. Well, won't be a link because if you're watching it on YouTube, you've already found the channel. But it's Stratosphere Studios, and that's where the new stuff will be. And I'll start unloading some of the existing stuff, and that'll do it. So we've been here for 2.5 hours. It's long enough for me right now. And I plan to do different sets if I can and dress it up a little bit differently. But for the time being, we at least got it out the door, and it's time to start getting some content up there on the second channel. So if you haven't subscribed there yet, please go do it. I might put this on BillWhittle.com. I think I probably will. I'll put it on both just to get people to go over and subscribe to it, so we can get past that 1,000 mark, and then we're going to start promoting this animation thing because I'm very happy with it. All right, and by the way, gang, I'm just so burned out. Honestly, it's not like overwork. It's just the magnitude of it, the size of it, of the work that needs to get done, and all of this stuff going on out there. And I've been watching a lot of. There's a guy called Odin's Men who criticizes TikTok videos. At first, I thought he was just like an amateur, but the guy's actually he's a former military guy, and he's just the voice of common sense. And I'm just completely hooked on it. But it means I've watched 40 TikTok videos in the last 3 days, and honestly, it is getting pretty scary out there. TikTok is the psychiatrist's couch for a generation, and I have to constantly remind myself, okay, you're looking at 30 videos and there's 300 million people out there, and that's the way it goes. But good Lord. So we're gonna push forward with all this and see what we can get. This show, like all the other shows here, is I will put it on BillWhittle.com. This show, like all the rest of them, is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com, who have gotten us to the point where we can start branching out in this. And just close with this. It's heartbreaking to me, and I know it's designed to be heartbreaking. I know it. It's the purpose. I heard this from Zoe 4 or 5 years ago. But watching these views get dialed down and dialed down and dialed down. Now it's like if we have a video does 6,000-7,000 views, it's like that's a good video. It is really, 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 really hard to watch this happening, and I just have to stop myself and say, okay, this is being done, and that's all there is to it. But man, it's hard. And the main reason for doing this is to get it to people who haven't seen it before, and get around all of these censorship bars created by pink-haired 23-year-olds who don't know what century World War II happened in. Anyway, you get the idea. All right, so that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Studio. we will see you guys on Thursday for the Stratosphere Lounge, which will be back to old school politics only. And from that point on, we will start moving with bubble these things. But two live shows a week now. One kind of pop culture-y, animation-y things, and the other one for your questions about the latest statements from Vice President Kamala Harris, which is really moving stuff. And moving, I mean, makes you want to move. So there's that.